Okay, so for instance, some people are in the lobby again. Okay, so we were talking about two parts of a definition. We have the definiendum and the definiens. The definiendum is the word or phrase to be defined. That word that we want to define is the definiendum. It is like the subject when we did our English language. You read about subject and predicate. So in definitions as sentences, the definiendum is akin to the subject. The definiens refers to the rest of the sentence, which does the defining. So the definiens is like the predicate. It is that part of the sentence that is defining the definiendum. For instance, in the definition, cat is a large, long-necked, ungulate mammal. The definiendum is cat, and the definiens is a large, long-necked, ungulate mammal. So the definiendum is analogous to the subject, whilst the definiens is analogous to the predicate in English grammar. The definiens defines the definiendum. The definiens provides the meaning. The definiens provides information about the meaning of the definiendum. A man is a male animal. A man is a male animal. Man is the definiendum. Is a male animal is the definiens. Then we have types of definitions. First of all, we have lexical definitions. Lexical definitions are also called dictionary definitions. They are definitions, those definitions we find in dictionaries. Example, a lizard means any of the numerous small scaly reptiles, typically having a moderately elongated body, a tapering tail, and two pairs of legs held outwardly from the body, comprising mostly terrestrial and burrowing species. So this is a long definition of a lizard. You can see this kind of definition is in a dictionary. So we call it a lexical definition. Then we have ostensive definitions. Ostensive definition is a non-verbal way of conveying the meaning of a word by pointing to the actual object or demonstrating the meaning of the word in real life situations. Ostensive. What is ostensive? Ostensive connotes demonstrating. And an ostensive definition is a non-verbal way of conveying the meaning of a word by simply pointing to the actual object. There are certain words we cannot define in a verbal way. There are no words for defining such things verbally. You can only point at them. For instance, color words such as yellow, red, green, blue, and so on cannot be defined descriptively. You can't define yellow in writing. You don't know what to write about yellow as the meaning of yellow. They can only be defined ostensively. Also, words that denote styles of dance. So certain styles of dance, for instance, Adua, Azonto, and so on, are defined using ostensive definitions. So you cannot say Azonto means this, because it's a body movement. Then we have theoretical definitions. Theoretical definitions are definitions that originate from specific disciplines. Okay, 2 seconds. Let me see who is in the lobby. Okay. So we're talking about theoretical definitions. Theoretical definitions are definitions that originate from specific disciplines. Examples of words with theoretical definitions include inflation. So we know that the word inflation originated from economics. And so it is to that field that we owe the definition of inflation. Then also we know that bipolar disorder originated from psychology. So we owe psychology the definition of bipolar disorder. We know that viral load originated from biochemistry. We owe biochemistry the definition of that word or phrase. Okay, for example, viral load is a new expression of the quantity of virus in a given volume of fluid. So that's the definition of viral load. And we got that definition from a specific academic field. So viral load, the definition of viral load is, we call it a theoretical definition. Then we have stipulative definition. So for stipulative definition, we use stipulative definitions when we assign a meaning to a word, either for the first time or for a specific project. When we assign a meaning to a word, either for the first time or for a specific project. Example, the Ghanaian word frenemy means a person who is an enemy pretending to be a friend, or someone who is a friend but is also a rival or an opponent. So frenemy is a stipulative definition that some Ghanaians formulated, which was originally not in the dictionary, but was formulated to describe a certain situation that has not been described in the dictionary. That's how to formulate a stipulative definition. If you are undertaking a project, or if you are writing your thesis or your dissertation, and then you are working on a certain topic, you want to use a certain word, but you find that the dictionary meaning of that word does not particularly fit what you want to do, you will find that you are tempted to formulate another definition that is more specific to what you want to do. And you are formulating that definition on your own authority. And so you can start writing your project by saying, yes, the dictionary defines this as 2 and 2. Sorry, let me mute everything. So in your project, you want to define something in a way that suits the project. And you find out that previous definitions are not suitable. So you can say that previous definitions have regarded this term or this word or this phenomenon as suitable for my project. So for my project, I'm going to define this term or this phenomenon as this. That is what we call a stipulative definition. You have created a definition that did not exist. That is a stipulative definition. Then we have operational definition. Defining a term by describing a set of actions or operations that, when accomplished, will determine the entity referred to by the term. So operational definition is a definition that shows a kind of operation that gives rise to something. Example, a solution is an acid if and only if litmus paper turns red when dipped into it. So this definition shows a certain operation. So we call it an operational definition. The second one, a substance is translucent if and only if when held up to a strong light, some of the lights come through. So that's an operational definition, because the definition reflects some kind of operation that makes the phenomenon possible. Okay. And then note that an operational definition must specify an operation. For instance, the definition a solution is an acid if and only if it has a pH of less than 7 is correct, but it is not an operational definition because it does not outline an operation, a procedure, or a step-by-step demonstration of a phenomenon. So a solution is an acid if and only if it has a pH of less than 7. It's not an operational definition. All right. Then we have essential definition. Essential definitions are also called real definition. An essential or real definition is the only definition that captures the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. The only definition that captures the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. All other definitions are unable to capture the necessary and sufficient conditions for a definiendum. Examples of essential definitions. A prime number is any number divisible by only itself and 1. So when you look at this definition of a prime number, any number divisible by only itself and 1. So the definiens contains the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. Once you divide any number by itself, or once you see that a certain number is divisible by only itself and 1, then it must be a prime number. There cannot be any exceptions. So it is something that has a definite outcome. Once you fulfill the conditions, there is only one outcome. Once you fulfill the conditions specified in the definiens, there's only one outcome, and that outcome is the definiendum. No other outcome. That is why we say that for an essential or real definition, the definiens provides the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. Let's look at the second example. An even number is any number divisible by 2. Any number divisible by 2 is an even number. So once you divide a number by 2 and there's no remainder, then that's an even number. There is no how you divide a number by 2 without remainder, and it is not an even number. So the definiens provides the necessary and sufficient conditions to give you the definiendum, and it cannot fail. So essential definitions are available only in mathematics. It is in mathematics that you perform an operation and there's only one outcome. 2 plus 2 has only one outcome. When you perform mathematical operations, they are supposed to give rise to just one correct outcome. There are no 2 correct outcomes in mathematics. There's usually only one correct outcomes. Only one correct outcome when you perform a mathematical operation. So definitions where the definiens give you characteristics that lead to only one outcome, and that's the definiendum. Such definitions are called essential definitions because they operate with mathematical accuracy. Okay. So a little exercise. Determine the type of definition in each of the following passages. So what type of definition is this? A house means this. And then you have the diagram of a house, a picture of a house. What kind of definition is that?
Stipulative definitions.
Come again.
Stipulative definition.
Stipulative. The definition points to the picture of a house without describing the house.
Ostensive definition.
Ostensive definition.
Ostensive definition.
Okay, so that's correct. Ostensive. Okay. Okay, the second question. Water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom. What kind of definition is that?
Theoretical definition.
Theoretical.
Theoretical. Is it also an operative definition?
Yes, sir.
Okay, remember you can have more than one type of definition applying to a certain term.
Yes, sir.
A nuclear family is a living unit composed of a man, woman, and their children. What type of definition is that?
Say please, lexical.
Lexical. Okay. What other type of definition is it?
Theoretical.
Theoretical. Okay.
Essential.
So that's fine.
No, sir, it's essential.
Essential.
Essential or real definition.
Are you sure it's an essential definition?
Yes, sir.
Why do you think it's an essential definition?
Please, it's theoretical.
Yeah, it's theoretical, but there are some suggestions it's essential, but I wanted to know why someone thinks it's an essential.
Because any family made up of a woman a woman, the father and the children is definitely a nuclear family.
Yeah. But remember that.
This explanation.
Yeah, but remember that the word nuclear can have different meanings too. And remember, I told you that you can only find essential definitions in mathematics. And that's because outside mathematics, concepts are essentially complex. There's quite a lot of everyone. Okay, so let's move on. Problems with definitions. Definitions can fail to provide accurate meaning in several ways, such as being too narrow, too broad, vague, circular, or begging the question. Let's see some of these problems. So a definition is too broad if the definiens refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define a definiendum. A definition is too broad if the definiens refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define a definiendum. In other words, if the items denoted in the definiens go beyond what is needed to define the definiendum accurately, then the definition is too broad. Example, a toy is a machine. A toy is a machine. Now, this definition is too broad because there are many machines that are not toys. So the word machine is too broad to define a toy. It's just like saying a car is a machine. You can't say a car is a machine because there are so many machines that are not cars. Cars are just a tiny fraction of all machines. So saying that a car is a machine is a broad definition. A machine goes much beyond cars. That's why we say the definition is too broad if the definiens refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define the definiendum. In other words, if the items denoted in the definiens go beyond what is needed to define the definiendum accurately, then the definition is too broad. Okay. Too narrow. A definition is too narrow if the definiens fail to capture the full range of items needed to define a definiendum. In this case, one realizes that the definiens lists fewer items than is denoted by the definiendum. Example, a toy is a tiny car used by infants to play. A toy is a tiny car used by infants to play. Now you know that toys, there are many toys that are not tiny cars. Tiny cars are not the only kinds of toys. Apart from tiny cars, you have so many other toys. So when you say a toy is a tiny car, the definition is too narrow. Not all toys are tiny cars. So using tiny car to define a toy is a narrow definition. Then we have vague. The definition is vague if there's no way of telling what class of things the definition refers, the definiens refers. If there's no way of telling what class of things the definiens refers. Example of a vague definition. Democracy is a kind of government where there's freedom for all. Freedom for all. So freedom for all. There's no telling what class of things the freedom belongs to. So when you say democracy is a government where there's freedom for all. This definition does not clarify who all refers, whether it denotes human beings, animals, birds, crocodiles, and so on. Then ambiguous. The definition is ambiguous if the definiens presents more than one possible meaning of the definiendum. More than one possible meaning. So you can see this is different from a vague definition. In the case of a vague definition, you don't know the class of things that the definition applies to. But for ambiguous definition presents more than one possible meaning of something. A sentence is ambiguous if it lends itself to more than one distinct interpretation. Examples of ambiguous definitions. Faith is true belief. Faith is true belief. A triangle is a figure composed of 3 straight lines intersecting at different points in which all the angles are equal to 180. So when you say faith is true belief, you see that true belief can also suggest some other kinds of beliefs that are not faith. And so faith is true belief can be interpreted in more than one way. Okay. Now, in the first example above, true belief could mean either sincere belief or a belief that is not false. In the second example, one wonders if each of the 3 lines is equal to 80 or a combination of the 3 lines is equal to 80. Okay. Circularity. A definition is secular if the definiendum.
Yeah, question.
Yeah, come again.
Service, I have a question.
Yeah.
Please, with regards to a definition or a sentence or statement being ambiguous and then too broad, how different are these?
Come again.
For example, a too broad definition is such that the statement contains like more than. In other words, it is over explaining the main thing. That is for something being too broad. Whilst ambiguous is that same thing, but it is having more than one explanation.
Yes, for the ambiguous, you can interpret it in two or more ways.
Yes.
For instance, faith is true belief. True belief could mean sincere belief, or true in the sense of not being false. Of course, you know that true. When we say true belief, sometimes we mean true belief means a belief that is not false. But it's not always all the time we see true belief as a belief that is not false. Sometimes true belief could be sincere belief, and then you see that it's not really a question of broadness. It's a question of two different interpretations, But in the other case, where a definition is too broad, when you define a toy as a machine, you see that it's too broad because machine covers so many things that are not toys. Toy is just a tiny fraction of machines, So you need to distinguish between definitions that are too broad, definitions that define something in terms of a larger category to which it belongs. When a definition defines something in terms of a larger category to which it belongs, if a definition is defining a department as a university, then the definition is too broad because the department is smaller than the university. Using the university to define department is too broad, But in the case of ambiguous means that it could either mean one thing or mean another thing. It could mean two specific things, but it is not broad. It's not a question of broadness. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, so sir, please, per your explanation for these two, is it appropriate to say that an ambiguous definition or statement is a subset of a too broad statement or definition?
An ambiguous definition or statement is a subset.
Yeah, a subset of a too broad definition or statement.
A subset of a broad definition.
Of a too broad definition. Can we say that the ambiguous definition kind of originated from being a too broad definition, but here it is restricted to being either containing two or more explanation of what the thing it is referring to?
Well, that kind of analysis is something you can do with your extra time. But the point is that it's a little bit straightforward to distinguish when definition suffers either of those problems. Oh, the noise is. Let me see. I think I have to mute everyone. Okay. Yeah. So let me see. I think I have to replace these examples with clearer ones. Examples that will show you very clearly when a definition is ambiguous and then when it is broad, because there are cases will show you which one applies. In the case of broad definitions, they have to do with when you are defining something that is actually a subset of something larger. If you are defining something that is a subset of something larger, and you are defining it using the larger category to which it belongs, then that definition is too broad. But for ambiguous definitions, there doesn't need to be a subset or a broader set. What you just have are two different interpretations, two interpretations that are possible to something. One of the interpretations doesn't need to be a subset of the other. Okay, so circularity. The definition is circular if the definiendum appears in the definiens or if the definiendum is cited as part of the definiens. So a circular definition is a definition where you repeat the definiendum in the definiens, or you use the definiendum to define a definiendum. Examples: morality is to be morally right. So this is a circular definition. Morality is to be morally right. Metaphysics is a systematic study of metaphysical issues. Pentagon is a plane figure having the shape of a pentagon. So these are circular definitions where you use definiendum to define a definiendum. Then we have begging the question. The definition begs the question if the definition is obscure, digresses from providing meaning, or does not help in shedding meaning on the definiendum. Example: Jubilee House is the office where every Ghanaian would want to be. Jubilee House. We want to define Jubilee House, and then this sentence is supposedly defining Jubilee House as the office where every Ghanaian would want to be. So that's not a definition. It begs the question of the meaning of a Jubilee House. Because the meaning of Jubilee House cannot be the office where every Ghanaian would want to be. So the correct definition of a Jubilee House is the name given to the office of the President of Ghana. So that's how you know that a definition begs the question. It begs the question by saying something that is not helping you to know the meaning of the definition, or it actually digresses from from being a definition to something else, like a value statement or something.
Sir,
Yes.
per this Jubilee House example, can't
Yes.
we also say that it is also a too narrow definition?
Yeah, explain.
Too narrow in the sense that it is not clearly explaining what the Jubilee House actually means.
Yeah, but does it present a subset of the meaning of Jubilee House as the meaning of Jubilee House?
No, sir.
That's how you know a narrow definition. A narrow definition provides the subset of Jubilee House as the meaning of Jubilee House.
Okay, sir.
Then a little exercise. Diagnose the problems with the following definitions. What are the problems with these definitions? A bird is an animal that has wings. A bird is an animal that has wings. An animal that has wings. Being the definition of wings, is there any problem with that?
Say,
Yeah.
say. Please, it is a too broad definition.
Too broad. So explain why it's too broad.
Because a bird, like it's saying that a bird is an animal with wings makes it too much, because not every animal with wings are birds.
Yeah, so not every animal with wings are birds. Let me see. Yeah, so a bird is a subset of all the animals with wings. So when you are using all the animals with wings to define birds, then it is too broad. A human being is an animal that has 2 legs. A human being is an animal that has 2 legs. An animal that has 2 legs is being used to define a human being. Any problems? Everyone. So Carlos is raising his hand. Do you have an answer? Carlos.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Sebis, I'm confused. I don't know what I should say. Is it too vague?
Yeah, so let someone else attempt it. Where is my cursor? My cursor has suddenly disappeared. I don't know how I would navigate back to seeing who has raised their hand. Oh no. Okay, so anyone who, I can't see those whose hands are raised, but whoever is the next person, what is the problem with that definition?
Okay, sir. That one I can also say is also too broad because it is not every animal with how should I put it? Fine. In other terms, human beings are classified as animals, but it is not every animal with 2 legs that are humans.
Okay, so you are saying that humans are just a subset of all the animals with 2 legs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so can you remember which other animals have 2 legs? I think I can instantly remember kangaroos.
Yes, kangaroos.
And who else?
Bird.
Please, there are monkeys as well.
Say peacock.
A vulture.
Turkey.
Yes, in fact,
Ostrich.
you know that birds are
Please,
also
vulture.
animals. Yes, in fact, just talk about birds.
Please, dinosaur.
Please, turkey.
Okay, so that means the definition is too broad. Too broad.
Yes, sir.
A bird is a feathered animal that can fly. A bird
So
is a
this one too
feathered
is too
animal
broad.
that can fly.
Please, this one too is too broad.
A feathered animal that can fly. So, okay, so birds are just a subset of all the feathered animals that can fly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next one, philosophy is the study of the world.
Please mute your mics if you finish.
Yeah, so philosophy is a study of the works of David Hume. The study of the works of David Hume is philosophy.
Please, it's too narrow.
Too narrow.
Yes.
So you are saying the works of the study of David Hume is just a subset of
Yes. Philosophy is
Okay. Let me move it. Okay, a submachine gun is a gun that shoots like a machine. A gun that shoots like a machine is a submachine gun. Any problem?
Please, whoever that has a musical background should mute himself or herself. It's disturbing the class.
Yes, I just muted everyone and the person unmuted herself. that be? Okay, so
That's
read. A submission gun is a gun that shoots like a machine. What is the problem with that definition? How many? Secularity. That's good. Secularity. And then, sorry. Happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness. Happiness is an emotion people generally prefer to sadness. What's the problem?
Ambiguous.
Yeah, so so I am happy this particular question is bringing out something that we did not look at. Now you know that sadness is the opposite of happiness.
Irene, please mute yourself.
Okay, so you know that sadness is the opposite of happiness. Sadness is the opposite.
answer is begging the question.
So when you say happiness, it's an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness. Yeah, so number one, the definition begs the question. It begs the question. Secondly, you can also see it as secularity because sadness is the opposite of happiness. When you say happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness, it is also a secularity because when you mention sadness, you have automatically somehow mentioned happiness because everyone knows that sadness is the opposite of happiness. So we didn't look at that aspect of secularity. That aspect of secularity. I think we're going to see it later on.
So is the answer begging the question?
Your main answer could be that it begs the question.
Hello?
Say a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir.
Sir, please. Can I talk?
Go ahead.
Okay, sir, please, the philosophy question, no? Can that one also be a circulatory problem?
No, because philosophy is made up of a lot of philosophers. So when you define philosophy as a study of just one of the many philosophers, then you are using a subset of those that make up philosophy to define philosophy.
Oh, okay.
So you need to be able to distinguish when something is a subset of another. Because that is how you know about broadness and narrowness. If the relationship of subsets does not apply at all,
okay,
then you can consider other problems like secularity, begging the question, and all the rest. Vagueness and ambiguity.
You say I have a question.
Go ahead.
Please, why is the last one begging? Why is the last one begging?
Yeah, the last one is begging because an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness is it's like a factual statement. I wouldn't say it is a value statement. It's a factual statement because you are saying something we can verify by asking people what they prefer. So it comes closer to a factual statement than to a definition. So that means it digresses from the function of definition. So you need to find out, you need to know when a definition is digressing from what it is supposed to be doing. Okay, so Magdalene, you want to ask a question? What about blessing? And then this one.
Sir, please, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir, please, the circularity and the ambiguity part, I didn't get it as well.
Come again.
Sir, please, the circularity and the ambiguity part, I didn't get it well.
Yeah, circularity is when you are using a definiendum to define the same definiendum. When you say that morality is doing what is morally right, it's a circularity because you are just recycling the definiendum as a definiens.
If it's an ambiguity part.
Ambiguity is when you define something in a way that suggests two different things. That suggests that thing and then something else.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Let me see. Okay, so I think we are at the end of the class.
So last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, please, like I'm a little bit confused yet. It's a general question though. Sir, theoretical definitions or statements. They are more of sentences or statements that can be derived from a source.
Yes, an academic field.
Okay, very well. So if that is the case, then why isn't lexical definitions under theoretical definitions?
Yes, it is not that they cannot be under it, but that we divided definitions into different categories that sometimes are related to one another. And that is why a particular definition could be a theoretical definition as well as a lexical definition.
So say in other words, if it is a theoretical definition, then automatically it is a lexical definition.
That is if all lexical definitions were taken from academic disciplines. That is if all lexical definitions were taken from academic, but I'm not sure all lexical definitions are taken from academic disciplines.
Okay, so said there was one example, one question under water, like the definition of water.
Yes.
And then we're like, the answer is a theoretical one because it can be derived, its source can be derived from the world of chemistry. But at the same time, this definition can also be found in a dictionary.
Yes.
So here, isn't the answer both theoretical and then lexical?
Yes, but I have said that. I have said that a word can be both a theoretical definition and a lexical definition, and even an essential definition.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So a certain word can be categorized into more than one or even two types of definitions.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions?
Please, can you explain the vague problem again?
Which one?
The vague.
A vague definition is the definition that does not refer to any class of things. That is a vague definition is a definition that does not put the definiendum in So when you say democracy is government where there's freedom for all, you know, it generates vagueness. Because the all was not, you didn't say it's for all human beings or for all the citizens of a constituency or country. So it is vague because it does not situate democracy in a particular class of items in the world. That's why it is vague.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, say in other words, can you say that? In other words, can you say that vague is more like giving a wrong explanation to a particular term?
It's not necessarily wrong, but it is. It did not situate. It did not situate the meaning very well. The meaning may be correct, but it was not situated properly.
Okay.
Sir, please, can we also say that the vague is broad because of the all?
Yeah, you can say it is broad, but it is broad in an extraordinary sense. Because when you say freedom for all, you are talking about the entire universe.
Okay.
Yeah. And we are going to see what treat other what is called. Okay, so
Please, sir. Sir,
go ahead.
please, sir, how many definitions can a statement have? Like, is there a maximum number to a statement's definition?
No, you just need it for a word, a phrase. What we have just done, different problems with definitions. But when a definition escapes all these problems, then it's an accurate definition.
Sir, please come again.
What we have just done are the different problems with definitions. But when a definition escapes all these problems, then it is an accurate definition.
Okay.
Okay, so Mansi, person, have any questions, as well as Irene, Saki?
Sir, please, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, please, if the statement falls under two different types of definitions, do you have to write both? Or you need to write only one?
Two types of definitions.
Let's say you are given a statement, and the statement falls under theoretical and also lexical. Are you supposed to write both or write one?
Now, if it's more than one, you write more than one. But I don't think anyone will tell you to choose one if the options are more than one.
Okay, so you'll be given options.
I'm not sure you'll be given options if there isn't only one correct option.
Okay.
It's only when there is one correct option that you'll be given options to choose the correct one.
Okay, please.
Okay, so I'll be seeing you guys coming Wednesday, and hopefully we're not going to have any internet issues on that day. So pray about that, because in our part of the world, these things are not guaranteed at all. All right.
All right.
So I'm going to, and then you are going to get the recording.